by 30. Who knows?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually like I've given some interviews before, but never like an audio podcast like this, and I don't know. It's kind of a cool experience to be on the other side of the mic.
Yeah. To be the guest for once.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for well, we're recording. Thanks for taking the time to come today. Appreciate it.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So you initially sent me the link to Toronto DAO, which is a project that or a group that you're a part of.
Yep.
What can you tell me about this in simple terms? What is the purpose of the org?
Sure thing. Toronto DAO is a grassroots organization, and our mission is to nurture and retain tech talent in Toronto, making Toronto a technological beacon worldwide. And we thought about this mission for a long time, and we thought hard, and we were trying to find something that all the stakeholders kind of align and feel the same way about.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone got frustrated that a lot of times we see very smart, very talented tech people in Toronto doing something, but then when they find some sort of attraction, they will be like they would just leave somewhere else,
mm-hmm.
whether it's like United States, Singapore, Dubai, no matter what. But like it's not beneficial for them to stay in Toronto, which is fair. So they leave, but like it's frustrating,
mm-hmm.
and so that's kind of like we wanted to bring attention to that issue. And when it's obviously a tough situation to solve, I would say, but that's kind of like the goal of Toronto DAO, is to make sure we at least talk about it.
Okay, so in terms of creating incentives for people to stay here, from my understanding, you guys are helping to build that network so that people have access to various tools or organizations that can actually help them build their project or get a job or what have you. Is that the whole purpose, essentially?
Absolutely, because when you think about it, the mission itself serves as a kind of like a large umbrella for a lot of things that we can do. When you ask yourself why people leave Toronto, you can kind of like come up with a lot of different explanations to that, whether it's a socioeconomic one, where it's like rent's too high, the pay is low, Canadian dollar is too weak in comparison to the USD or something else, or something like they just cannot afford it or feel unsafe or something like along those lines. So we have this, I guess, freedom to tackle any of those issues, and obviously the number one low-hanging fruit for us is to get people together and get them to network.
Mm-hmm.
So we love to do different, I would say, events, activities, which includes like a lot of presentations, a lot of pitches. Like during our events, we love to get community members present in front of 100 plus audience. Very well produced on stage with microphones and all, like it's a real thing, because it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that they get that experience in Toronto and not just go somewhere else and try to get that experience. So we're trying to help them out. We're trying to help some young builders to kind of establish themselves while they're in Toronto without necessarily having the need to leave to Silicon Valley.
Right. Okay. And I see that you guys have like a voting structure for different proposals. Is it just for proposals within the organization, or how does that work?
Right. So as a DAO, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. We originally really, really wanted to start the governance where, it's a real DAO with like real votes and all of that. But, it's as a young organization, we kind of started noticing that it's much harder than it seems to get that traction, to get more people involved and have that decentralized governance. So right now we're still trying to building that out, but at the same time, we're like watching really closely what do other DAOs are doing. And so far, like what we're seeing is it's really tough for everyone, even the most sophisticated decentralized autonomous organizations, such as like city DAOs, they had like millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to buy like land in Wyoming and all of that, but they couldn't figure this out because everyone was trying to do their own thing, and they couldn't actually have a consensus as far as voting goes. And that's kind of like the problem with decentralizations as far as DAO go. It's very hard to kind of come to the decision.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, that decentralization is kind of like a thing where it's like beautiful and amazing concept, but when we're trying to implement this in practice, it needs to have more thoughts, and it needs to have more, I would say, nuance to that. And therefore, we're sort of right now running our organization as a small grassroots organization, and we slowly trying to recruit members, issuing membership NFTs with hope that in the future we will build out with like appropriate budget and all, we'll build out an actual decentralization for the DAO governance.
Okay. And in terms of the votes, now I would assume you guys aren't actually voting on like staking land elsewhere,
right?
Even though other organizations are. What kind of stuff are you guys actually like voting on within the org?
Honestly, we started voting on like what the mission should be, what the logo should look like, because my philosophy was to keep it simple, and it still is. And I didn't want to I didn't want to like put that pressure on everybody to vote on vote on something huge like next action or something like that. But I want everyone to train that muscle to vote, to actually register, attach your wallet to the voting system, making sure your vote counts, making sure you come to the proposal meetups and all of that, and then make sure that you vote physically, basically.
Right.
So that's kind of like what we started. But so far we sort of put that on hiatus, and we're hoping to restart it very soon.
Oh, okay. So in terms of the difficulties you guys have found against or with people getting incentivized to vote or to participate in the process, what are some of the issues that you found? Is it just because like people just don't think that it matters, or that their vote will get swarmed by like another group within the organization, or like what does that look like for you?
So a couple things, like as with any organizing thing, it's really hard to get people like do some action. That's why you're seeing how hard it is to organize politically. Like as a party, as a political party, you have to really, really have a strategy. Like how do you run your campaign? Because the whole idea behind it is that you want people to be active and you want them to actually go out there and vote physically. And it's extremely hard. You have to make sure that there's a motivation. So getting people to participate and having active participation, and that was like a huge kind of like eye-opener for me, like wow, like as with everything else, it's really hard. So it comes down to really simply is like what's the skin in the game, right? And so far when there's not much at stake for potential members or current members, the motivation to actually log in and kind of like track the Discord or track the Telegram group and see like what the current proposal is, what am I getting from it, especially like we're not allocating any tokens or anything like that. So, so it's like with any crypto projects, there's always a little bit of an incentive of that, you can have some tokens and you maybe can swap them for something better or something like that. It's better, like, so it kind of like gives you that incentive to participate. So far, we're just kind of like purely going on like the mission. Are you for mission? Do you want to support us? Do you want to be a part of that? And that just at this point, and we're still at the very beginning, is just not crossing that threshold right now where people are just like, oh wow, like I want to be engaged nonstop. Obviously, the workaround and like I would say like even if you want to cut corners is of course issuing your own token and do something with that so that people have that hype around it. Because whenever you have a token, it's like a weird thing with people. All of a sudden they see money signs, and I'm not saying that the DAOs should like trade their tokens or or just at least speculate on that or something like that, but I'm just saying that it definitely excites a lot of people for some reason. And we're just not there yet. We're just not feeling like that's something we should be focusing on. Right now we're just trying to focus on the mission. So we're doing the classic way of just trying to show our enthusiasm, just trying to show by doing. So we're physically like, we're doing these events. We have great partnerships with different like Web3 companies, for example, and they support our mission as well. And so through that, we're getting some help in organization. We're getting some help in creating some activities. We're getting some help in like funding, for example. So that's where we're at right now. We're like just starting, and enthusiasm is great. We're not pressuring anyone to log in somewhere and vote or do anything like that. But we do appreciate any retweets and engagement with our social media, of course.
Of course, yeah. And in terms of like big picture for like, let's say you guys were able to implement a token or get that that engagement from the people that are in the org.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be concrete, but like, what are some of the things that you would like to see in the future as developments for Toronto DAO?
As far as from technical standpoint, or just as far as the mission goes?
I guess both, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the mission. I think, and I always kind of like tell to the team, it's very important to remember why are we doing this. Because if we do like a lot of cool things, a lot of cool parties, a lot of cool like startup pitches, sometimes you can forget like, why are we doing this whole thing? Because it's a really hard labor. Like you have to organize this thing, you have to talk to a lot of people. Like, I'm like constantly sending everyone like sponsorship decks and all of that. But like in the midst of all of that, you can forget why are we doing this. And that's why, and I used to, didn't understand that. Why does the mission statement is important? Like if you're like incorporate an LLC, I remember in the state of Nevada, I was doing that back in the day. They actually require you to have a mission statement, and I thought this was just a redundant thing. Like, why would you do that? But then, like being older, I now understand that having an actual clear, defined mission statement allows you, like grounds you, and allows you to just like relax, step away for a second, and just kind of like recalibrate. And you can always get back to your mission whenever you're in doubt, or whenever you're kind of like you're forgetting what we're doing here, or why are we doing this. The mission, that's why your mission statement is important, and that's why I tell to my team, we're nurturing and retaining tech talent in Toronto. That's what we do here. We want to make sure that Toronto is the tech beacon worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, honestly, I'm not sure like if it helps them or not, but it definitely helps me.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely helps me to remember like why we are doing that. And so, there's a lot of initiatives that we can do. We can do political initiatives. We can do social initiatives. We can even do partnerships with a lot of tech companies here in Toronto to help out the local talent, to basically have a better life here, to stay. Because ultimately, if our tech is staying in Toronto, they work in Toronto, they pay taxes in Toronto, contribute to the economy, everybody wins.
Right.
From the tech standpoint, it's a little more complicated because I've been watching a lot of like DAOs lately, and I really want to make sure that we are diving into this completely prepared. I'm a huge fan of Balaji Srinivasan, and he wrote this great book called The Network State. So as soon as it dropped, I read it, from beginning to end, and it's a great interactive sort of like a PDF document. I would say you can download it from his website. It's free. And he talks a lot about DAOs and how they should be
That's
structured.
what I'm guessing?
Yep, that's
Okay.
it. Yep. And every chapter and paragraph is indexed, so definitely check it out. But I read a lot about that. I actually like read a lot of use cases on other DAOs as well. And so what I'm seeing so far is having a DAO is sort of an experiment. Everyone wants to build that utopia of a DAO, but it's a tough one. So we're still in the research stage of that. And what I'm thinking maybe in the future, again, that's not a given, but I want to start really small. I want to make sure that we have a DAO as sort of a subsection of Toronto DAO, where we allocate certain amount of budget to this internal DAO that we have, and then we will kind of do like proposals based on that, and it's going to be kind of like in its own silo, but it will be like supporting the mission, and there's going to be like KPIs and stuff. Like that's how I look at it. Might be wrong, but that's how I wanted to start, just to kind of have this internal experiment in the future to make sure that everything works. It's a very like a social experiment as well, because when I'm like browsing Discords for different DAOs, it's always like argumentative, which is great. Like this is what democracy is about. But then there's like, it's really interesting. Like at what point the consensus is found, or at what point like the vote is actually passes. Because as you mentioned before, sometimes the votes are being rigged. Sometimes like you give memberships to DAO members only to the ones that actually support your vision and support you politically, and you kind of like bias towards that, and basically the entire vote is kind of like a charade, just to make sure your agenda is being pushed through. And then at that point you're like, well, then what's the point? Just have a normal organization and have the hierarchy and the leadership and just do your thing. Why call yourself a DAO? And it's kind of like our conundrum as well, because we're calling ourselves a DAO, but we're not really a DAO as far as governance go. But it still motivates us to do the research and observe other organizations to make sure that once we launch officially with the full active governance, at least we want to make sure that we are starting on the best foot.
Okay. Now, in terms of actually affecting change in this space and incentivizing people, because as you said, it's not enough to have mixers, it's not enough to just have events for people to show up. Those do certainly help. But legislation, would that not be like a core principle of what you guys would want to achieve moving forward, like in the long term? Because at the end of the day, like you guys can have all these events and help all these startups and give the space to all these people, but unless like let's say the capital gains rate lowers or whatever any other like political initiative changes, is there not like any substantive change that happens until the political engine actually moves in that direction, or?
Well, you can look at it from several sides. I would say definitely you can push for legislation and start your own lobby company and just like go to the city hearings. And by the way, which is a great idea, and I really like that idea. Like I think we should at some point go to the city council hearings and at least like talk about that. But you can also just take some action, like the fact with networking events, for example, that are very targeted towards tech people, and especially like where we're not just kind of like throwing a party, we're doing an agenda and activity, where we have community members who go on stage and they pitch their projects, and we have several of them, and we produce everything in the way that it's just like it's a serious business, it's a serious deal. But not only so that we can help the community member who is presenting, for example, but for everyone else who is there and watching. So what I'm trying to say here is basically, yes, for pushing this whole politically, but also yes to like just start doing something. And so right now what we're doing is like we're bringing attention to the fact that we have people here that can organize and can actually put a spotlight on the very, very talented people. They don't have to go on Shark Tank. They don't have to go on the Dragon's Den.
Right.
They don't have to go to take a trip to Dubai to like some sort of a conference.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, just like do this whole thing here in Toronto, meet cool people, go to some parties, go to some events, be a part of the community. And we have a lot of like Toronto DAO is just one of, I would say, several that are really, really great. I mean, we're here at Solana Startup Village,
mm-hmm.
and oh my God, like Super Team is the team behind it,
mm-hmm.
and the way they support the community is just so great, and I'm so thankful that we have them, because honestly, a lot of us found home here, where every Friday we do a co-working. This is the whole thing is for 2 weeks. This is really helping, because we're just coming out of, we're still, I feel like, not recovered from the whole COVID mentality where we are working from home,
mm-hmm.
we're maybe less social. We prefer now maybe work from home, but now because we have this type of co-working spaces by Super Team, we love coming here, we love meeting new people, like the amount of connections I got here, it's amazing. And they have free food. So
yeah.
Those are the type of actions like, yes, you can go to the, and press your government, and I feel like everyone should. But also, don't just think that that's the only way. You can also contribute in the other ways, in supporting each other in community, and just like, reaching out to actual corporations and partners,
mm-hmm.
And they can help you out with something cool like Super Team or our events that are supported by SWE Foundation.
Okay, so the idea is to essentially create a critical mass of people that are in one way or another aligned with this mission statement to build this hub in Toronto,
yeah.
And that eventually from the bottom it will translate to the top as long as enough like key figures or opinion leaders are involved in the process.
That, and at the very least, like, just have the guys engaged, the guys and girls, like, just have them come out on a Wednesday. We're not even like serving drinks at our events, like, but they're so fun. We have like stand-up comedians and stuff. Like, I'm the marketing guy. I come from like a professional boxing as far as like the promotion goes.
Mm-hmm.
I like to throw down a show. So there's like, we had like a magician at our event, we had like comedians, we had the beatboxers, all of that. Like, I like to have presentation, entertainment, a small panel, and a bigger keynote presentation. Something like that where it's like fast-paced, quickly engaged, and it's in a great location and all of that. So just have that on a consistent basis so that anyone who is like working on a project, everyone who is, you've mentioned before that, we were joking about University of Waterloo and how they're like our best expert is the Waterloo grads.
Yeah.
So these grads need to do something in Toronto. Let's say they want to take a trip to the city, but they're not like a party goers or something. They don't want to like get crazy in a nightclub. But you can go to, on a Wednesday night, you can go to a cool networking event. You have free food there, you have some free drinks, and just it's a great atmosphere. That's something that you'd think we have a lot in Toronto for tech people, but we don't. We have some boutique corporation-sponsored things here and there, but that's like tough to find, and the capacity is usually small. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating like, oh, events is the answer, but I'm just saying events is one of the things. Mm-hmm. You can literally like, create an initiative. Like our other initiative, for example, is like creating apps. We have this whole thing called 3-hour app challenge.
Like a hackathon for 3 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, I was sitting there, I was thinking like, what can we do? Because when you talk about events all the time, everyone starts thinking you're just an event organization, right? And we have a bunch of them. But I was trying to see like, okay, how do we put skin in the game? How do we actually participate in building? And so I was like, okay, let's do a 3-hour app challenge where we get in the room, we have devs from Toronto DAO, we have like 3 devs on the team, but also anyone else who in the community who wants to participate. and let's get a couple of marketing guys, including myself, and just sit there for 3 hours. And within those 3 hours, we have to come up with the concept of an app, and also with the rough, like skeleton of the code of the app. So like it's kind of like like a rough MVP, basically by the end of 3 hours. Now that doesn't mean that in 3 hours the app is going to be deployed, which I actually, kind of like thought maybe we can actually achieve that, but that's not how things are working.
Yeah.
But within those 3 hours, we had so much fun. We had like 2 whiteboards and all of that. We were like trying to brainstorm what we're gonna do, and just like by the end of it, we created this. Oh, and by the way, like the rule was keep it simple, because again, it's a 3-hour thing. We just want to accomplish that, and we wanted to present it to the world. So we created a small AI wrapper, where it's we call it Bespoke Beaver.
Okay.
And so the idea behind it is just like you enter your Twitter account into the search bar, and it analyzes your Twitter. And it's actually live too. You can check it out. And basically, it creates like your persona, whether you're like analytical and creative, all of that. And based on your persona, it gets you 5 spots in Toronto that you'd most likely visit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that you're searching for it right now. It's
Would it be on Twitter?
we have yet to publicize it, but let me just quickly send you the link. It's literally bespokebeaver.tdao.to. I'm sending it to you right now so that your listeners can check it out as well.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Right on. So like you said, you put in your handle, then it gives you like a list of places that you would actually like,
Yeah.
depending on your posts and all that other stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just simple. Just that. And that was a great experience. We had that down. We had everything. Like, as a prototype, it was working. But because we had several AI tools like in it, it started hallucinating a lot and all of that. So we had to have a little bit more time to actually hard code some of that stuff and make sure like we don't just get stuck on some silly hallucination. So, but at the end of the day, it worked. And when we presented that thing at our event, the interest was crazy. We had several devs approach us right at the event and said, we want to participate in the next one. Like, this is fun. And then later on again, and then a couple marketing guys as well. So again, like, this is just professional people, like superstars, I would say, even approaching you and saying like, hey, I want to dedicate my time to this thing because this is fun. This is something that I was looking for. And that kind of gives you a signal, like, we are lacking those kind of things. The simplicity, like when I hear hackathon, because I'm not a hacker, or I'm not like a dev, for me it's just like, this sounds like a 24 hours or 1 week long thing where you have to just do something, and I'm not even a coder, so I feel out of place. But if it's 3 hours, and let's say you're a creative guy, you can just sit there in the room with them and just spitball ideas and see if it's going to happen or not. And that's actually so much fun, and you feel so empowered. And for devs as well, they like the structure of it. There's a beginning and the end, and then if something comes up with it, you kind of like develop it later as well, but the core of the whole thing is already there. It's done for you. It's just fun. And I think like everyone should try it.
No, right on. Because that actually, the moment that you said like, oh, you don't even have to be a developer to participate in that, that immediately I was like, oh, I should definitely go to an event like this. Because like going to these spaces, I'm not in crypto whatsoever. I don't even have my own wallet. I've never even written a line of code outside of like tutorials.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff is out of my wheelhouse, but I still like to go to these events because I know that like this is the next wave. This is where things are headed, and I would rather be somebody that is like the dumbest person in the room, but at least learning a lot, rather than somebody that's on the outside and looking in and being like, oh, that looks fun, but never actually going to the events.
Absolutely. And that's why like you have to bring the normies in. You know what I mean? Did you try the app?
No, but I certainly will. Let me try it here.
Well, let's see if it works for you. If it doesn't work, it's just the law of how it works when you show it live. It takes a little bit too loud, but it is how it is. Like the two AI tools are actually talking to each other right now, trying to figure out who you are and where you should go.
And I mean, it'll be a useful tool because like I'll find myself like on occasion just being like, what's going on in the city? But I get like all this like Eventbrite stuff or Facebook events, and I just never know where to go. But
yeah, well, that's interesting what you have there right now.
Toronto Reference Library. That's a great library. Easily the best library in the city. Great space for working. The park, hot dogs. Okay.
And what about your persona right there? What does it say?
Key traits: analytical, inquisitive, and socially aware.
Interesting.
Yeah. I guess that basically lines up. Oh, and it gives you a map as well. Oh.
Gives you a map so that you don't get lost.
Perfect.
a website to the thing. So again, simple, right? But it's kind of has a little bit of a utility. Let's say you're at the conference, like out of town, and you want to do something fun.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the world is going, by the way. Everything needs to be bespoke. Everything needs to be concierge, highly customized to you. And that's where we're like thinking like towards that. Like that's what Bespoke Beaver is for. It's just for you. It's your events. It's your personality. It's not some sort of a website with the top spaces to go in Toronto. It's your spaces. It's your place.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just, you get overwhelmed with the amount of choices out there, and you have to filter by the categories, and then some of them lead you to a third link or a second link or what have you, and it's
Yeah.
just a whole mess. But no, this is a lot more streamlined,
Yeah, yeah.
certainly.
Looks better on mobile too. It's still a beta.
No, that's awesome. But no, when you mentioned the lack of these spaces in the city and how there's more and more people engaging in this kind of stuff, there's actually one, it's called New Systems. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they
sounds
have...
familiar.
Yeah, they have a space, I forget where, but it's somewhere I think in downtown in the city. But they have all these events where, it's called New Stadium. So
Nice. Oh, I heard about that. Yeah. How's that going? Because it just launched, and I remember like following a bunch of people on Twitter. Can you tell me more about this? Because I'm actually curious.
Yeah, so I wasn't here at the beginning of it, but they initially had, I think it was last year, they rented out...
Guys from Shopify.
Shopify, they helped sponsor it, but I
Yeah.
don't know to what extent they're involved. They could be, I genuinely don't know. But last year they rented out a garage where people could show up once a week. You pay like maybe like $10 or something like that. They had some snacks, and you could go there, co-work, have a little demo of whatever you're working on. You would get feedback. And it's a wide range of people, from designers to actual devs to everyone in between and beyond. And it didn't necessarily have to be like an actual app. You could be working on a 3D print. You could be working on a website. You could be working on a book or what have you.
Yeah.
So they gave the space to any and all creatives to kind of just go in and do this. And I don't think they have any corporate sponsors beside like some Shopify stuff, but eventually they built out the New Stadium, which is now like they're having weekly events, like a much bigger studio space. They got like more room for people to work. But the one thing that drew me to it was last summer they had this thing called New Demos. They rented out this movie theater in Roncesvalles, which is just...
Oh, I love that.
It's west
area.
of us.
Little Poland.
Yeah. So they rented out a movie theater there where they invited a bunch of people to essentially show off like their projects and what they've been working on.
That's so cool.
One of which was, do you know this game called Factorio?
No.
So it's like the whole point of the game is you land on a planet and you're supposed to mine the resources to eventually be able to build a rocket to go into space. Typically, it takes about 60 hours or so to complete the game.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that all at once. So this guy, what he did was he decided to run the entire game in command line. So he fed the game engine and all the rules of it, like what resources you would need in what order, and try to essentially speed run it. Now, there's no utility in it. He did it just for the fun of it, just because he could. But I was there for the demo, and seeing all those creatives do that, it just made me realize, like, oh, like I can do this, and I should do this, because like this is actually cool. Like this is awesome. People are just getting together, building cool shit, like building off of one another, giving each other advice. You don't really get that in your day-to-day life and your job or what have you. So having those kind of third spaces is not only like cool, but like it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary.
That's amazing. I really think this is the future. People getting together in some sort of a co-working space and just like vibing, just like hanging out, showing demos, working, asking for advice. Like we're in the chat together right now. You see like people are like, oh, I messed up my React or something like that with my code. Like my Mac is not loading. Is there anyone here like helping me? Or yesterday, like I was sitting and working, and someone was asking like for a graphic designer, and he was sitting right behind me, the graphic designer. He was helping like on the spot. Well, just like giving a lot of advice to this young engineer. And I was like, you don't get that a lot. But like it's starting, like it's going there where you have to bring the people together and just like have that collaboration. But like in 2019, I would say that wasn't the case. Like I feel like we're switching to this type of mentality where it's not like an office job. It's like everyone's working on something separate, but they all together.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of another space in Waterloo. It's called Socratica. It was launched by a bunch of Waterloo students, but now it's actually gone global.
Wow.
So they have nodes in just about every continent, I believe. And so this past, I think about a month or so ago, They actually rented out the hockey stadium that they have there.
That's badass.
Let me see if I can pull up. Yeah, like they had like a huge stage where they were doing all these presentations. It was like a major production.
Wow.
Like they had a lot of people involved in it.
That's like a real documentary. Look at that.
Yeah, it was huge.
Wait, where's that? Where was that? In Toronto?
No, in Waterloo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went there for the weekend, and they had like a major production showing off all these great like apps. One guy built like an exoskeleton. I don't know how much of it was functional, but he built it out himself, and he started as a 3D printer, like as a hobby when he was a kid.
There is a special subsection of people who own a 3D printer, and they're like a dev. They're coding. And my friend is one of those. And the way like they do stuff with those type of things is just like ridiculous. But like that's another whole kind of like different level of being like a crack dev is like if you have a 3D printer and you want to code some things, it can like lead us to all kinds of new innovation. And you can do this out of your living room, which is just insane.
Oh yeah, no, 3D printers are fucking cool. I just picked one up for about like $200 or so. And they're a little bit finicky to set up unless you have like the latest model.
And the material as well, you have to have a quite high quality.
Yeah, I 3D printed this. It's like a little.
That's cool.
There's a second part to it, but it's like a screen cleaner. That's like the resting bench for like the little cloth. But
I love that.
yeah, you could. It's very cheap. It takes a little bit to get used to, but if you have like the more expensive models, I think they're up to like a K now or so. They are very, very well made.
Yeah, I feel like what like a 3D printer should have is like the sharp edges that you have here. You know, like I feel like my friend told me like there's a lot of things like you have to make sure that you have the material that is kind of like make sure that the plastic is smooth or something like that. But then he has to do his own finishing as well.
Yeah, there's different ones. There's so the traditional one is like filament printers, so it's like a tube of toothpaste that like will go over like several layers like 100 times or so, and then there's resin printing where like you have a pool of resin and the printing bed, and then there's like a UV light. Yeah. So with every layer, it hits.
Softer.
Yeah, it hits it at a certain angle so that it gets like that exact increment. Then it raises just a little bit, and every like second or so, it like goes up and up and up, and then you have your print.
Yeah.
The problem with those is that like you have to, because it's like a giant chemical vat, you gotta have really good circulation because you can't be breathing in that shit.
Oh wow.
And then you have to also finish the print. So like with this, once it's done, I can just take it off the bed, you know, maybe scratch it a little bit, and then it's done. But with resin printing, it's a little bit more intense.
Yeah, like, you know, how do you call those? You can like print your own like soap holders or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, and pretty soon it's just gonna be in your house like a fridge. Everyone has like a little 3D printer to print some stuff, like a spare part for your laptop or for your bicycle.
Yeah, no, for anything. The main reason that I love it is because it allows you to augment your environment so that it's completely catered to yourself.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Augment your environment.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Even though like it sounds a little bit stupid because like, oh okay, so you printed a soap holder. It's like, okay, fine, but like I don't have to go to IKEA and buy this little part and finagle it or like work in my machine shop. I can just go to the 3D printer, build a model on CAD, or better yet, there's tons of free resources online of people that already had the same issue, so they just built the piece and you just have to change a little bit here and there, and now it fits for your home.
I mean, yeah, that's amazing. There's so many things you can do besides the soap holders.
Yeah, and they're getting much cheaper now. Like I remember when I used to paint houses for a living. I was doing this like indoor part of like a kid's room in like 2016, I want to say, and he had a 3D printer, and that's when they were like 2K, and I was like, holy shit, this fucking kid, he doesn't know how lucky he is, because that is like an insane piece of tech that I'd love to have my hands on.
Remember when they just came out, 3D printers? Everyone was like hyping this up like crazy, like, oh, this is the new future. Like it was like a next big thing. But somehow it kind of like became just the usual kind of like a thing. Like, oh, 3D printer, yeah, that's cool, that's awesome. But like for some reason, like we're kind of not talking about it as much. I'm not sure why is that. Like, it's just because like it's just for the niche audience who just want to print some things, but like there's not much other like adoption or use for people at this point, just because it's still kind of tough and takes some time to print. And like, why are we not hyping this up like we did like 10 years ago? I don't know.
I think part of it is because it became a commercial enterprise. So what a lot of manufacturers do now is they have like a printing farm.
Yeah.
So they'll have like a warehouse and they'll have like 100 or so printers just stacked on top of one another. So if you need a custom piece, why bother getting a printer yourself? Why bother having to figure out the software, figuring out Blender or anything like that? You can just send them an idea or like the scan of what you want to do, and they do it for you. So you're you're not connected to that process. Because to get this piece right, like, dude, the amount of frustration that I had fucking like just getting it, and even with like the fragments that are imperfect, like I was just glad that it stayed in one piece and I was able to print, because the failure rate is extremely high if your like bed's not level, if the material's too wet or what have you. I think commercialization has to do with it, which is also a good thing, because like it allows more and more people to, instead of having to like source the part or like make it themselves, much cheaper, and they can get hundreds of them at once. But at the same time, it removes them from that process. So I think like that's probably like partly why.
Have you seen this YouTube channel by this Russian guy, and he basically in his garage and he's building an Iron Man suit?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
I kind of got obsessed with him for a second, and I started watching every video that he has. But he has a lot of stuff paywalled, and like more power to him. Like he's making money on that. But he had an entire episode about him getting like a new 3D printer for this particular piece of armor that he wants to develop or something like that. And it just didn't print correctly, like always crack or something like that. And he just went into different like adjustments, and like the whole episode was about him iterating a bunch of stuff. And he like contacted the actual manufacturer, and they're like, the customer support is just like some dude, I guess, like that actually works there. It's not so it's like a very niche thing, but it was so cool how how it works with like actually designing like an armor for yourself that is actually functional. The whole thing about the YouTube channel is that the Iron Man suit has to be functional.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be a real one. And so I don't know, like if you're really, really obsessed with that type of thing, you really have to go all in. But like as you said, the rate of failure is going to be so high that you have to be able to like reach out to the manufacturer. And it's funny because they were so helpful to them. They actually sent him like a new detail or a new part, or like I think at the end of the day there was like a software update that he didn't do. Like there's a lot of that with the software too. But yeah, man, if you're really, really obsessed, like you can do some crazy stuff with that.
Oh yeah. No, and they're only getting better. Like I think they just this past year they released like the first like commercially available like metal 3D printer.
Right.
So now they're working with those kind of filaments, and I think it's only a matter of time before that goes into like actual like just regular people's hands. They're still going to be very expensive, obviously, and there's still going to be like a huge like knowledge gap in that. But at the end of the day, like that's how 3D printers started out, as like these big, giant, towering machines, and now they're like not even a quarter of the size of this desk. I mean, you could even make one that's like this big.
I wonder how much 3D printers contribute to the defense industry.
A lot, I bet.
You think?
The metal ones, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, because like if you can 3D printer an entire tank shell, like that's kind of like that's really cost efficient, I think. But I don't think we're there yet.
Well, there's the other aspect of 3D printing. They had a lot of legislative issues in the U.S. when it initially like came on the market
because of the guns, right?
The ghost guns, yeah. And you can make like the pieces. There's like entire websites for it. I forget the name of the guy, but there's one guy that's like really adamant, and he's very like libertarian about it. Like, look, people are going to have access to it, so you either do this out in the open, or you let them operate in the black market without, any supervision or anything like that. And it's much better to have them out in the open so that we actually know what kind of tech they're using or what have you. Otherwise, it's just up to whatever.
I'm really curious to see where it's going to lead us with 3D printing. I'm actually thinking like this is all, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but like we're all kind of not talking about this just because something's happening, and we're not supposed to talk about, not supposed to actually hype it up too much because more people will get their hands on that. But who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I think the learning curve is like a big part of it, because I thought it was a lot easier than it actually would be. And then once I actually got to like working on my first initial prints and doing the tests and everything, I didn't realize just how many parameters there were that you could set. So like it's one thing to have like the actual nozzle move at a certain speed, but then the extrusion of like the filament, that's a separate speed. And then there's also the temperature of the bed in the like initial portion of the print versus like when it's halfway to the print. Like there's so much customization that's involved in it that unless you have like something like, I think they're called bamboo printers, they're among the they're like the Apple of 3D printers basically. have their own software. It's all proprietary. They don't allow third-party printing software, which is like a big controversy in the 3D printing world because obviously they want to open source as much as possible.
Right.
But they dummy proof it. So like if you buy this machine, like a 2.5K, you got 4 filaments you can feed into it. It's closed system, so you don't have to worry about any temperature fluctuations. Got touch screen and everything. So they make it really easy. But there's a bunch of like Chinese firms that have like an open air printer where you actually have to go through like doing all the setup, and you could even go as far as to even making your own software, like the firmware for the printer, which is even more complicated. So I think it's just like the knowledge gap. I think that's what stops a lot of people from actually entering it. And then also they're like, why would I do this when I could just go to IKEA or what have you?
Have you heard about this software, 3D printer software acquisition last year? Like it got bought for a lot of $1 billion, but at the end of the day, they open sourced their main thing that they want to print for, and so everyone was laughing about them.
Interesting.
I don't know. Look at I wish I had more information on that. I just remember like I remember that happened, and my friend was sending me the links telling me that this is ridiculous. But I think what they were after is data. I'm not sure.
That's actually funny. That's a big fuck you to the purchaser then, because
it was something like that. Yeah, in like along those lines. But I'm starting to think maybe they were hunting the data or something.
I mean, honestly, good for them if they did that, because at the end of the day, I firmly believe like an open source, and like that is the way to really push the needle on any kind of progress, is to get it in the hands of as many people as possible, with certain exceptions, but like for the most part, yeah.
Anything you see there on Perplexity?
Don't see it here. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if that actually did happen.
Imagine. That's like logically speaking, like we all going down to the AI world and trying to build AGI. Even actual artificial intelligence is built, and they have their hands on the 3D printer. Like the things that they can come up with, and it becomes really dangerous really quickly. I feel like.
Yeah, it would. As a user, it would be great because then you could just, if you have a webcam on your printer, then you don't have to be there to monitor the printer to make any adjustments. Just based on the visual data, it could make like the micro adjustments in real time and then fix the print and go from there. But yes, also if it's connected to the Internet of Things and there's a rogue model out there that it could just turn on a printer from like in Milwaukee or in Kazakhstan or wherever, then it could just make the thing. But then like it's like, okay, well, you've made the thing, but like now like it's just there.
Yeah,
so,
I like how you mentioned Kazakhstan. It sounds like you did your research on me.
Oh, are you from there?
I'm from Kazakhstan.
Oh, I'm from Uzbekistan.
No shit.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, man.
Yeah. I heard like a little bit of the accent. I thought, but I didn't want to.
What are you, like a Russian speaker too?
Yeah, Russian. Yeah, you too.
No way. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right on. That's awesome.
That's crazy, man.
Small world.
Yeah, Central Asians, yo. Well, I guess Happy Victory Day. I don't know if you.
Yeah, Happy Victory Day. Yes, yeah, that's right. Today is May 9th. First thing I woke up this morning, I was sending my whole family group chat. I'm like, yeah, Happy Victory Day.
Yep, exactly. That's funny. That's funny.
Awesome. When did you come to Toronto, if you don't mind me asking?
2019 in October. Before that, I was in the United States, but also in between, I was in Kazakhstan.
So why come to Toronto? America's got it all.
I couldn't stay in the United States. Like it's really hard to immigrate there. I was working for a nonprofit, and they were really great about everything. They sponsored me for a visa. Like they did everything they were supposed to do for like a work visa. But at the very end, you'll get into like a lottery because there's like 300,000 people trying to apply for like a 90,000 spots, visa. And so they threw me into the lottery, and I didn't win the lottery. Can you imagine? So yeah, so I was like, I remember myself sitting on the bench, like in the park. I just like took a walk, and I was like, wow, like this American experiment is over. So and yeah, in less than a month, I just went back to Kazakhstan. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But like right away, I started applying for like started researching, and I applied for Canada, or at least started gathering documents to apply for a Canada residency. And so in a little bit more than a year after that, I was already in Canada, in Toronto.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's Kazakhstan like these days?
I'm actually going there with my wife. We're going there like in a couple of weeks, basically. It's great. I mean, it's like all my family's there. The weather is much better right now there. I just can't wait to go there. And I always say the food, the service, everything is just so much better, and for a better price. So yeah, like it's home. You know what I mean? Like I was born there, I lived there, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Right on. Now, in terms of like when you were picking like the cities in Canada to move to, what drew you to Toronto initially?
It's funny. Originally, I was gonna go to Vancouver.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, because a lot of my friends are in Vancouver, and I was like, Vancouver. I didn't know anything about the cities. I just know Vancouver and Toronto. That's the two cities that Canada has. Like, it's like basically how does it like look for outsider?
Yeah, yeah.
Because of the university cities and stuff. And yeah, and then my friends told me, like, the older guys, they're like, knowing you, like, you wouldn't like Vancouver. It's too small for you. You're not this kind of like hiking type guy. You're a big city guy. You're a big action guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just go to Toronto. You will, not regret it. All the sports is in Toronto. All the like show businesses in Toronto. And yeah, so I was like, okay, that makes sense. I'll just go to Toronto. And I'll be honest with you, like immigrating to Canada was like one of the easiest experience for me because up to the United States, going to Toronto, it's just like just moving to another city.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I always hear about those stories, like how hard it is, and I feel bad because for me it was just like a piece of cake. I just came, landed, and I was like, okay, I know what's happening here. I know the language, I know everything, and it's just like I found myself a condo within 7 days and moved, and yeah,
There you go.
like that was a piece of cake for me.
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard. I have a coworker who's he's from Scotland, and when he was coming here on a work visa, they asked him, he's like, do you have any jobs that like, do you have like a guaranteed like job that you're gonna be at when you're there? And he's like, nope, I'm just gonna land and figure it out. And so the guy's like, all right, here you go, here's your stamp, like, but. By all means, I think
awesome,
it helped because he's from like one of the like
Union or whatever.
Exactly, yeah, one of those countries. But,
Yeah, it's funny for me. Like I was already working remotely, so even that for me was like, okay, like so you have to really thank stars and God or whatever for having like sometimes life gives you a break. After like you're getting kicked out of the United States, you thought you're gonna like stay there and all of that. It's just like a crushing experience. But then coming to Canada, it was just like everyone's just so polite and so kind. And then you already have everything, especially in 2019. Toronto 2019 is different from Toronto 2025.
Yeah.
Like, I was still kind of like looking for other jobs, getting all those interviews, and just I got offers and stuff. It was like weird, like it was just easy.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just like everyone's for themselves right now.
Yeah.
So life was good, and the situation was good. So you have to thank, the universe for that.
Yeah. No, right on. I've been in this country since 2004, so I've seen it change quite a bit. But don't think I would really live anywhere besides Toronto, unless things got like really bad here. Like lately, with the cost of living and everything, it's been getting pretty difficult. Because thankfully, I do have like a work from home job besides my other day job that I go to. But eventually, like if it does come to it, I might just like find something out west.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a co-founder of Toronto DAO, I kind of have to stay here now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're kind of stuck to
it. But at the same time, we're all people, and I, trying to make sure like I cut myself some slack as well. But we're a team of 11 people at Toronto DAO, and everyone's highly motivated. Most of us are immigrants. We have Matthew Glazos. He's a co-founder. He was born and raised in Toronto. I think he's the only one.
Nice.
Everyone else is like an immigrant. Which
Yeah.
is basically what Toronto is about.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
So in terms of events, you guys have anything big on the horizon coming up? Or?
Yeah. We are a big part of Toronto Tech Week, and it's like
It's in June, right?
Yeah, it's in
late
June.
Okay.
Exactly. It's a huge initiative, and we're lucky enough to be partnered with one of the biggest exchange companies here in Toronto. I'm not gonna say the name yet, just because they told me like, don't say anything before we approve anything.
Yep,
So
fair
I'm just
enough.
saying we
Yeah,
have.
fair enough.
It's kind of funny dealing with exchanges in Canada because we have other partners and they're like, oh yeah, we trust you guys, do whatever, like have fun. But if it's like a local registered and fully like regulated thing, like you cannot say anything until it's approved by compliance. But what I'm going to say is that we're going to have an event on the 25th of June. It's going to be educational event at Arta Gallery. As part of Toronto Tech Week, and it's going to be about exchanges and just trading in general. Everyone should come, and we're going to start promoting that pretty soon. Right now, we're all focused on consensus and futurist conferences, and this month the team will just kind of take it easy, just attend different events as well. Because we've been tired, man. We've been organizing stuff like since December, nonstop, boom, 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 like, and the team did an amazing job, and I'm very proud of them. But yeah, this month we're just taking it easy. We're just going to party a little.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
But
that's
June
great.
25, we have the next event. Check out our Luma page, and we're of course going to be promoting that like crazy up to the futurists and consensus.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to see if I can make the
Yeah,
time
please
to go.
please do. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, because I'm looking forward to Toronto Tech Week. I didn't realize that the whole crypto thing was happening up until like 2 weeks ago, and I've signed up for like all these events, and it's great. Like going to all these spaces, seeing this wide range of talent, and even though I might not be, like I said, like the smartest person in the room, sometimes it's also like the best place to be.
Oh yeah.
Because then like people like yourself can make time for conversations like this, where like even though I might not have a huge background in it, seems like an endless supply of people that are willing to give their time to just like shoot the shit or just give some advice or what have you.
100%. It's liberating too, just to kind of ask people questions that, like my podcast, for example, is also for generalists, for audience who is in tech, but also like curious about other things. And you sort of ask your guests like, hey, like let's drop this whole technicalities. Let's just talk in more like abstract terms, or like explain something to me so that my audience can understand it better. Like, and that kind of makes them happier too. Like they love talking. They love, like the guests, they love talking about certain things in simpler terms, and they don't feel pressure to sound or be like super smart or something. Because sometimes you don't know who you're talking with, and people get a little nervous on the mic.
Yeah, no, it happens. But in terms of the regulatory struggle, because you mentioned that briefly with the exchange there, what does that landscape, at least from your perspective, look like in Canada? Because from everyone that I spoke to, it's just frustration comes to mind. That's like the main word. But like, what do you see as like some of the obstacles?
Yeah, I worked for a CoinSmart exchange back in 2022. CoinSmart is a Toronto-based exchange that was acquired later by I think BitBuy. And what I've seen from the inside is that the fact that you cannot really do anything as far as like the fun stuff that's happening in Web3. Like at that time, exchanges, and I think till this day, like it's still very hard to do any sort of like staking or anything like that. It's like a spot exchange. It's just like you just buy something or sell something, and we take the commission out of it, and you're done. That's all you can do. But even more sad is that they barely have any sort of coins. We're not even talking shit coins, meme coins, anything. That's just forget about it. We have to have in Canada coins that are basically the mainstream ones, the big
proven
ones,
concepts,
proven and all of that, trustworthy. I mean, I think it's changing right now. I know Crypto.com does a lot of things. Coinbase Canada has a lot of options. But yeah, like that's something that, but it's basically, I think Canadian exchanges, they serve as a good off-ramping tool. So like you trade your stuff on whatever Binance type exchange, and you do like margin trading, futures trading, all of that. You're going nuts, and then once you want to off-ramp and like deposit some things in your bank, you just transfer everything to a local exchange, and then you just like withdraw it. I'm assuming that's how people do it, because assuming you want to pay taxes on everything and all of that, like that's how I would do.
Assuming, yeah.
Yeah, but it's again, like it's a prerogative of every person. Like how do they do their things? Like that's where it's very hard to talk crypto in Canada. And as you saw as an example, like I couldn't even say like certain things just because it's all regulatory. And it's funny because we kind of started in Canada as like pro crypto type of thing before Quadriga exchange scandal, where basically background, Quadriga was an exchange in Canada. Stole everyone's money, and the guy who was running it disappeared somewhere in India and was declared dead afterwards. That's how I understand, what happened. And that happened even before I even knew what Quadriga is, because that was like, I think before 2019 even. So since then, like it was like, okay, we're gonna get super strict, we're gonna get super conservative on everything. And as you saw in the previous Canadian election that just happened, no one even talked about crypto at all. Liberals, conservatives, it was just like not a topic whatsoever. While in the United States, crypto was a huge part of the conversation. The Republicans were pro-crypto, and they attended. Donald Trump attended the
Libertarian conference.
That Libertarian, Bitcoin also in Miami he attended, and just like started doing all that stuff with like NFTs and his coins.
His
and
own
all
coin.
That. Kind of having like that skin in the game concept. Jury's still out whether it's good or bad, but now United States have the pro crypto SEC commissioner, SEC commissioner, and obviously, like my hope is that it's going to trickle down to Canada at some point. But like, yeah, that's the kind of world or like the country that we're living in. It's just extremely conservative and very cautious about crypto. And I actually don't really blame them. But at the same time, it would be great to have some sort of a coherence and I would say like some knowledgeable people. We have a lot of knowledgeable people here in Toronto. Ethereum started in Toronto. We have a lot of pro crypto people in Toronto. I mean, look where we're sitting right now.
Well, Vitaly's Canadian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and the whole Ethereum thing actually started here. Like they were literally going to different events here, like we were talking about, and just like doing their little hackathons. So we have the talent, we have the stuff, we have the headcount for that. We just need the government to start paying attention and taking control of it. Because you cannot go around it. You have to make sure you regulate it in the right way, and that's fine. But you have to start.
Yeah.
You can't just turn a blind eye and just regulate and prohibit everything. And things are moving in the right direction. I mean, one of the outspoken guys right now is Kevin O'Leary. He is a Canadian, and he owns like a huge crypto company. And so, I mean, we have some voices that are sort of mainstream, but again, and we have the new government right now, so we'll see how things are going. But I think we're gonna have a little bit of a breakthrough really soon.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time, because whether or not the government allows it, people are going to like do it regardless. It just depends on like whether or not they're actually going to report it on their tax filings or whatnot, because crypto is global. There's nothing stopping me from like paying a guy to buy Bitcoin for me and then holding it in a hard wallet and just having that as an asset that I just hold under my mattress or what have you. There's no amount of regulation that's ever going to stop that. The amount of tech that we have, whether it's something as simple as a VPN or what have you, like there's very little a government can do from me like owning crypto and them not knowing about it.
Yeah, like start kind of being open to it so that you can at least benefit from that and take charge taxes on that or something like that. Obviously, that's already happening right now, but like in the more sort of like, okay, you can do this, but you have to declare a lot of things, and a lot of people will be happy to do it, honestly. But yeah, we'll see how it's going to work. I think it's obviously much more complicated. We have a lot of issues with terrorism and money laundering and all of that. So we have to take that in the account. And but the one thing with crypto, like the misconception from I would say the boomers, so to say, is that they all think crypto is like private, and some of it is. But one of the things about crypto is that it's actually pretty transparent, and it's less private than it's much less private than the USD, for example. If you're gonna start like sheltering all that cash and all of that with crypto, it's all on chain, and you can actually see where the money is going and all of that, especially with the companies like Chainalysis or any other things, auditing companies right now. So it's kind of like educating I actually spoke I met with my MP last year. And I was like working on an AI project, and I was talking to her. Her name is Julie Zerowich, and she told me like, oh yeah, we're like getting educated on AI. Like they actually have like some sort of a, I don't know how they are getting like that education, but they do have some sort of a program where like getting up to speed on what's happening with AI. And AI is actually easier to understand because it's more of like it's more understandable. Like you see that transforming words into like a good paragraph, and you're like, okay, I see what it does.
Yeah.
But with crypto, so much of crypto is abstract. You have to sort of like imagine things, and that's why we call a lot of things like with some weird name or something like that, so that at least we can have some sort of a soft on-ramping. But it's still very hard for a lot of folks to understand what it's all about. But it needs to be done, and maybe we need new people, or maybe we need a new way of explaining it. But there's no way around it, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, you can't avoid it, and it's also an incredible asset to have. Like one of the things that got me into like starting to take it seriously is when we had the trucker protests. When I saw the frozen bank accounts, I was like, look, regardless of your political allegiance, regardless if you agreed with them, the government can do this for any number of reasons that they put out to justify it. They can just simply use that same mechanism on another group in the future. And I don't want to be the one that's holding the bag without any kind of funds that I have access to. I'd much rather be like, okay, well, fine, so freeze my bank account or what have you, or have that concern. But on the other hand, like I have this USB or I have this account or a wallet or what have you. It's somewhere out in the ether, so that at least like I can hedge my risk in that regard, because with everything that with the way the political landscape is going, with how everything is so polarized these days, there's no telling where we're going to be in the next 4, 5, 6 years. So having something that is allowing people to have that freedom is not only nice, but like I find it's essential. Like you have to educate yourself on these things, like you have to educate yourself on AI, because one day or another, the day is going to come when the people that are able to take advantage of this tech, they're going to come out on top, and you don't want to be the last person in on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's with the truckers, like it was one of the best use cases for crypto. Honestly, I just wish it was in any other country than Canada, but you know,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But honestly, like I'm also like blaming the fact that it's so hard to board people for real on crypto. It's just like it's not their fault. Like as a guy who is more like customer acquisition and marketing, like I'm not gonna pretend that all your like connect the wallet, have the seed phrase, and wait until this little loading button will like connect the whole two things together, and then you call it Web3, and then it's just like a usual like some dumb thing. But everyone's excited because your wallet is not connected and everything is on chain. But every freaking action gonna take forever for load and just to make sure it's registered. Like it's all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the problem with Web3 right now is that don't blame the customer for not understanding what it is. Blame your tech. Blame your user experience, user interface. Like this whole thing needs to be updated. What I like I talked to Hio project on my podcast the other day, and it's a music project, but it's Web3. But the beauty about them is that they don't put all that Web3 stuff like on the front end. It all is kind of like on the back end, so you don't have to do all of that. And all you do is just listen to music and just enjoy it. And that's what I like. It's like, okay, got it. You're Web3. You're different. But like the whole the 40-year progress with the user interface that we have is there for a reason. It's not like you just change the game and all of a sudden you're much better. So you either adopt what they already do, or you know, just or you stop basically. Because I'm just saying, you need to make sure that you have users who are satisfied, customers who are satisfied, who understand what the hell is going on with their apps. And a lot of Web3 projects right now, and just crypto in general, is missing that point. Like I was working with my former boss, and she told me like, no one cares about all the Web3 stuff and all the wallets and stuff. Everyone just cares about a button that needs to be pushed so that something happens, and that's it. It's simple as that. A little dopamine hit or something, like just where to push so that I can get some sort of output. I don't need all this wallet, you know, save the seed phrase. I mean, it all sounds appropriate. These are the rules, you know, these are privacy rules. But darn it, it's really hard to keep everything in your mind and make sure you're responsible for millions of dollars if you have them, or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a piece of paper in the safe somewhere, or in a flash drive. That's a lot of pressure. There's a reason why banks exist. There's a reason why you have certain people that handle things for you. That's because you cannot just trust yourself all the time. What if, you know, something happens? What if you just forget certain things? And so I feel like we're slowly coming to this realization. It's like, well, like with DAOs, for example, I'm realizing that being decentralized is actually counterproductive because a lot of decisions are not getting made. So you have to have a little bit of a centralization, a little bit of a hierarchy, the lead organizer, like just to push the team. So we're kind of going to the cycle, in my opinion, where we're realizing like, oh, like, yeah, that's kind of like where the whole human evolution kind of came down to, with the hierarchies and banks and all of that. Like, it's not just because someone wants it to do, like someone wants it to be like that. It's just like we kind of organically came to that conclusion so that it's easier for us to leave. And so that's the ultimate question that Web3 crowd and crypto crowd has to deal with, is that, okay, it's cool technology, concept is great, it definitely has a future, but can we talk about ease, like UI, usability, pleasant? You know, I don't want like my mom to freak out about certain like things that don't go well. Even like, you know, sometimes like my clients who are very, very knowledgeable, they will sometimes switch the wallet address accidentally on MetaMask or something, and they will start having a little panic attack just because like all of a sudden they kind of like lost where they are with like which wallet was used, where the money came from and all of that, just because it's just not really, it's not clear sometimes. Anyways, that's my TED talk about where we are at Web3.
No, that certainly comes through, especially as someone on the outside. Like I've talked with a couple of people that are building apps on chain, or they have things that they're working on in crypto, and the usability is a big portion for me, because like the only exposure that I've had to crypto is like I'll see a headline or like pump.fun, or I'll see like Twitter, you know, posts and whatnot, and just all this technical lingo and all these different things. I'm just like, okay, that is way too much for me to process right now. I need it simplified as possible, which I understand, like, especially with something like crypto, you would want to have a base layer so that in the case of like whether you're changing like the wallet address or whatever, so that you don't go into a panic, you understand like, okay,
Yeah, some sort of
it's fine.
insurance.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, maybe there's like a huge business model in crypto insurance, and if you mess up, like with a certain amount of money, we'll recover it for you. We'll just compensate you or something.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
But that would be like, that's why it's not a business, because there's so much stuff going on right now that it's just impossible to insure.
Yeah, and on the flip side, it does allow for the tools that are looking to simplify people's access into crypto or entrance into Web3, so that those tools will actually come out on top of the market because they're able to get more users and get more functionality and so on and so forth.
Yeah, like in the very classic competition, you know what I mean? Like if the Web3 tools need to be popular, not because it's a hype and everyone can get rich because it's a casino, but they have to be the best because they're simply better tools. That's all.
Yeah, because the one guy I interviewed yesterday, he was working on such a tool like that. He was essentially creating a platform for people to launch their own token on Solana. But he also created stopgap measures that would stop snipers from taking advantage of that. So there's like, you could set like a 6-hour period where the transaction fees are, let's say, at like 40% or something. So the AIs that are monitoring all these different exchanges and whatnot will, go for a purchase and realize, oh, the gas fees are too high. I'm not going to bother with that. So then they completely just ignore that. And then like after a certain period of time, 4 or 6 hours, however long, then the fees will, reduce to a normal level. And then that allows for the people to actually be like, okay, now we can invest and not have to worry about whales or snipers or anything like that. So there are people that are like working on tools to make this more accessible to the average person so that they don't have to worry like, okay, well, am I going to sink like $100 in a fart coin and then it's going to go down to zero?
Hey, that happens more often than you think, or I guess you probably know, but yeah, people are getting. It's funny with crypto. Everyone's like publicizing how much they made money. Like it's easier to kind of talk about your wins, but there's so much more people that are losing money.
Oh yeah,
because it's a zero-sum game. But like you just don't hear about them because they're so embarrassed. They just don't want to talk about it. They just want to forget about it, pretend it never happened. But anyways.
Yeah. Have you heard of CoffeeZilla?
I think so.
He's like a YouTube investigator. He investigates scams for a living, but he's like really big in the crypto space. So he did an expose on Pump.Fun, and there was, I can't find the infographic now, but he basically showed like the percentage of people that actually make over, I think, like 2,000 on their coin when they flip it versus how much money is absorbed into the platform. Because after a certain time, if the coin doesn't reach a certain market cap, it just completely like just goes back into the Pump.Fun. And I think the percentage was like 90% or so of the coins launched on that platform will go directly back into the org. So that's how they're making their money.
That's a crazy business model.
Yeah, and then like only like percentages of people are making even like a couple of $1,000s.
Wow. Yep. That's why we have to have. I don't know what we have to have. Honestly, I don't know what to do about it. But it's just a part of the progress. I think it's just a part of the evolution. At some point, we'll end up at some sort of a equilibrium where the bad guys go to jail, the good guys are making great tools, and customers are just, picking the best ones.
Yeah, and we're just in the middle of like the growing pains. So yeah, like we'll have our scandals in our headlines, but the people that are, keeping their head down and doing the work, the one day soon enough, it'll be actually like an open space where people aren't worried about getting scammed or losing all their money and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How are we doing for timing? Because I know you said you could only do an hour for today.
Yeah, I got to run, unfortunately, but that was a really, really great conversation. I mean, it's I really appreciate you for inviting me to your podcast. It's great. It's a great experience.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. It was good to have you on. So for socials, people can find you at @DAO_Toronto.
Yep, that's Toronto DAO, and you can follow me on X at AZZ, all one word, ADOUBLEZI. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. Unlike a lot of Web3 guys, I'm actually very active on LinkedIn, and I actually think LinkedIn is a great tool for networking and looking for money, actually. Like the sponsors and all that, they're all on LinkedIn, not on Twitter.
Good to know, yeah, because I've seen a lot of shit posts on Twitter, like people clowning on LinkedIn and whatnot, which, I mean, I understand, like, some of them are really, like, grandiose, but I feel like the network is still there. It's still usable.
BizDev is for LinkedIn. But if you're in Web3 BizDev, it's different. But if you're actually trying to do something in real life, like BizDev on LinkedIn really works.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So connect with me there for sure.
Beautiful.
And finally, I have a podcast. It's called Azizi Podcast. Find it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Perfect, yeah. I'll post links in the description as well so that people can find it. My pleasure. But yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Hey, that was awesome. Loved it.